Hi everyone, I'm here with Jeremy Crawford, and today we're talking about the feats in Dragonlance, and we're not only going to talk about the philosophy around them, 1D&D a little bit, but we're also going to talk about kind of the crunchy bits and how they interact with your character when you're in the Dragonlance setting. So we are going to get much further into these feats today.
Yeah, we've been experimenting in a number of our recent books with giving people a feat as part of the new backgrounds that have appeared in the books. And that emerged in our books because we've been working on 1D&D for a while now, and we knew we were moving toward a world in which people were likely to get a feat as a part of their background at first level. And now, thankfully, we know, thanks to playtest feedback, that people love this. But we were prepared for the possibility that it wouldn't be accepted in 1D&D,
Right.
which is why, for example, in Dragonlance, it's specific to this campaign rather than a rule introduced to the whole game. But now it turns out Dragonlance is likely going to be in sync with what happens in 1D&D. And so what that is the new backgrounds in this book give you a feat as a part of those backgrounds. And then we also have a special rule here that says if you pick a background from another source, like the player's handbook, you also get a free feat, either the skilled feat or the tough feat.
Right.
Both of which are in the player's handbook. Now, Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, is special among our recent books in that it also gives everyone in the Dragonlance campaign an extra feat at 4th level. And that's because we made most of the encounters in this campaign extra hard, and we also wanted to use the feats to forefront some of the great world flavor of Krynn. And so the feats that you get to select at 4th level are either one of the feats that are introduced in this book that you and I will talk a little bit more about, but you also can select from a short list of feats from the player's handbook. Feats that we selected that were sort of roughly equivalent in power to the feats that are provided in Shadow of the Dragon Queen, but that are also appropriate to the theme of war, because this campaign is all about a continent in a desperate war against a cosmic force that it appears they have no hope of defeating. Of course, all of us who know Dragonlance know that heroes can find a way. And that's, again, what this story is all about. And that's what these feats are pointing at. It's a great example of how the modularity of feats, the fact that you can take them, each is a little standalone piece, can be a very effective way for us to give you world-specific flavor and mechanics that you can put on your character sheet, without, say, needing a whole new character class or a whole new subclass.
Right.
You can get a little bit of the sort of, in this case, the Krynn sprinkles in your character to feel like the character who's a part of this Dragonlance campaign is a little different from a character who's, say, in a Forgotten Realms campaign or an Eberron campaign or a Spelljammer campaign.
It is pretty hard not to steal these if you're not playing a Dragonlance campaign, though. These feats and backgrounds.
Well, it would be difficult, though, to steal them.
Right, because they're tied.
They are tied, and because of how juicy these are, and also how, more importantly, how tied they are to Krynn, the backgrounds as well as the starting feats in this book all have a prerequisite that you be playing a Dragonlance campaign.
Right.
This is something that we are going to explore in future books as well, because we want to have the ability to create setting-specific mechanics without worrying about how they might affect another setting if we were to make everything available everywhere. And so most of what we publish is available everywhere. Most of the feats we've published thus far for the game are available in any setting. Most of the spells, the subclasses, classes, etc. But occasionally we're going to do what you see here, where it's like, in this case, this is just for Dragonlance. Partly because the Knights of Solamnia, and a number of these feats are tied to them, they are an organization in Krynn. Same with the Mages of High Sorcery. Their roots are in the world that is the setting for this amazing epic war story.
Let's can we break down the Knights of Solamnia? Let's start with them.
Yeah. So if you decide to dive into the Knights of Solamnia feats, where you start is the Squire of Solamnia feat. This is the feat you get for free if, it's lovely having the book in front of me, and we can actually turn right to it. This is the book you get for free, I'm sorry, the feat you get for free if you take the Knight of Solamnia background. But you can also take this feat if you are a fighter or a paladin in a Dragonlance campaign.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that you had more than one way to get these feats and not just through the background that we provide. Now, this feat is all about being a squire, but also about the martial training that your character would receive by being connected with the Knights of Solamnia. So first off, you're really good at mounting and dismounting mounts.
Right.
You can do it much more quickly than other people.
Right.
And then you have this ability called Precise Strike, where you get to give yourself advantage, and then if you hit with that advantage, you deal extra damage. You can do this only a certain number of times per day, but one of the neat things we worked in here is that your uses are only expended if you actually hit, so you can sort of keep trying.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And part of this is we wanted you to feel like you can safely try, but there's also a little bit of story spice here, and that is you're a squire. You're starting out. We want you to practice. And I bring this up because often when we are making mechanical design decisions, narrative considerations are a big part of how we think about what should this character be able to do at this particular level, what's their story. And so again, I love that even in this subtle bit in Precise Strike,
Right.
there's this idea of, keep trying, Squire, keep going.
Yeah. It's also nice not losing an ability because you miss. That's nice.
Now, that feat then qualifies you at 4th level to take one of the 3 other Knight of Solamnia feats that are in this book. There's the Knight of the Sword, the Knight of the Rose, and the Knight of the Crown. Each of these associated with a different order within the Knights of Solamnia, and each feat teases out some of the flavor of the order that feat is associated with.
Right. And you can move between the orders and gain these feats as you progress in your career as well.
You do have the option at higher levels when your character has the opportunity to select feats.
Right.
If you have the Squire of Solamnia feat, over the course of your career, if you wanted to, you could collect all 3 of these additional feats. But at 4th level, you'll have to pick just one.
Yeah.
If you decide to walk the path of the Knights of Solamnia. And each of them gives you an ability score increase, and then, as I mentioned, an ability that leans into the mood or the theme of that particular order of knights. So, for instance, the Knights of the Sword, you get a demoralizing strike, where when you hit somebody, you can then frighten them. The Knights of the Rose, which often have been about bolstering their allies and companions, appropriately enough have an ability called Bolstering Rally, where they are able to give people temporary hit points. And then finally, the Knights of the Crown, and this is appropriate because the crown is so often associated with leadership. they have a commanding rally ability where they can use their bonus action to command someone else to attack. We've played occasionally with this theme in a few of the game's subclasses, as well as in the Battle Master, the fighter subclass. So again, here you have this chance of I'm going to spend my bonus action so you can use your reaction to make an attack.
Which I love that stuff. Yeah, I always like having an ability that helps someone else in the party.
And each of these actually appeal not only to the different stories of the knighthoods, but also to the preferences of players. Because yes, there are many players like you, and actually like me as well. I love playing characters who make the other characters in the group feel even more effective.
This is clear in the hobgoblin design.
Right. And so the Knight of the Crown speaks to that. The Knight of the Rose does as well. It's a very direct, just you all are more resilient now. The Knight of the Sword is designed to be more appealing to the person who really likes playing characters who are about sort of their own effectiveness, their own power. And we often will do this when we give choices of making sure we're appealing to those different player psychographics, because again, some people are drawn to the character who is just awesome and smashes things on their own. Other people want to be super utilitarian. They have, the tool for every job. And then there are other players who often want to play, again, that person who's making everyone else feel better.
Perfect. I love the Mages of High Sorcery, so let's dive into that.
So the Mages of High Sorcery also have a starting feat. Theirs is called Initiate of High Sorcery. This is the feat you get if you take the Mage of High Sorcery background. But again, just like with the Knights, we've made it so that you can select this feat if you don't take the background. And to select it, though, in that case, you need to be a sorcerer or a wizard in a Dragonlance campaign. So then when you get this, you are able to associate yourself with one of the 3 moons in Krynn, which have a mystical pull on the magic of the world. And the choice you make, whether it's Nuatari, Lunatari, or Solanari, then affects what free spells you get, and you're able to cast those spells without expending a spell slot once per day. And so really this is all about making sure you have some of the spells in your spell kit that have the theme of the moon you've selected. So for instance, if you pick Nuatari, you choose 2 spells from this list: Dissonant Whispers, False Life, Hex, or Ray of Sickness, since Nuatari is associated often with necromancy and sort of various fell powers. In contrast, the Solanari choices are either utilitarian or they're about protection. And these then set you up for the later feats, each of which is associated with one of those moons.
Right.
Now, unlike the Knights of Solamnia feats, where over the course of your career as a Knight of Solamnia, you could catch them all, that is not an option
Right.
for the Mages of High Sorcery, because those later feats require each one. For instance, if you pick Adept of the Red Robes, it requires not only that you have the Initiate of High Sorcery feat, but that you specifically chose Lunatari, the red moon,
Initially, yeah.
to influence your magic. It's a little more restricted because of the story in Krynn of how the mages are connected to the 3 moons. Now, the feat you do get later at 4th level or higher associated with the particular moon, it's beefy. Each of these feats is really beefy, and they are named after the robes that the mages traditionally wear that are associated with each of the moons. So it's Adept of the Black Robes, Adept of the Red Robes, and Adept of the White Robes. And one of the subtle benefits in each of these feats that I think it's actually easy to miss, and that's why I want to pause on it for a minute, is each one of these has a benefit that allows you to learn a second level spell that must be from one of two particular schools of magic. So for instance, going back to the Adept of the Red Robes, that second level spell you choose must be from the Illusion or Transmutation schools. Now here's the subtlety that's easy to miss. It is not required to be a wizard spell.
Oh, yeah.
You get to pick a second level spell from anywhere in the game as long as it is an illusion or transmutation.
Oh, that's fun.
And so I think I think that subtlety is important to draw out because these mages, because of their connection to the moons, they sort of are able to stretch beyond the normal limitations of arcane magic. So, you know, you could be picking a spell from the cleric list or the druid list or what have you, as long as you are meeting those school prerequisites. Then each of these feats has an additional benefit that is specific in its flavor and its mechanics to the particular moon that the feat is associated with. So for instance, the Adepts of the Black Robes, who are often about, again, harm or various fell forces, can channel their own life force, burning their hit dice to deal more damage to people.
That's my favorite. I'm not gonna lie.
It's sort of like, I am so mad that I'm going to even burn up a little bit of myself to
Very
do.
on theme for the Black Robes, wizards, I mean mages.
Yeah, whereas in contrast, the Adept of the White Robes is able to do a protective ward, where they reduce the amount of damage that someone takes. And then the Red-Robed Wizards, who are often associated with neutrality, they are able to meddle with the sort of the D20 with chance, and can turn a 9 or lower that they roll on an attack roll or ability check into a 10. Nice. So they can kind of nudge a bad roll towards success.
Right. They're a little. They feel like the Clockwork Sorcerer in a way of like reestablishing balance.
Exactly.
I love the flavor behind all of these feats. There are also so many. I think that kind of gets lost. Like you have one initial feat, and then you have 3 feats to choose from for both of the Knights of Solamnia and also the Mages of High Sorcery. So this is a ton of feats.
And in addition to that, we have a standalone feat in the book as well, and that is Divinely Favored.
Right.
And this feat is all about the Dragonlance specific story of the gods have reemerged and they have mortals who are specially favored. And so if it turns out in your Dragonlance campaign that your character is divinely favored, you have the option of taking this feat, which allows you to get some divine magic for your use. And here, this is one of the rare cases where we have a game mechanical choice that is tied to your character's alignment, because that alignment is a big deal in the story of Dragonlance.
Right.
And so whether you're evil, good, or neutral, that affects what magic is unlocked inside you if you take the divinely favored feat.
What I mean, I don't normally ask this, but what are some smart ways to use these feats? Because I do notice, like, I believe even with some people who are an initiate in High Sorcery, they don't necessarily have to be a full caster, right?
So
you could be an Eldritch Knight, or you could be an Arcane Trickster and sneak in as kind of an edge case.
So absolutely. So if you do not take the Mage of High Sorcery or Knight of Solamnia background in this book, you are locked into being a member of certain classes to take the Knight of Solamnia feat or the Mage of High Sorcery's feat.
Gotcha.
But the backgrounds allow all sorts of characters through the front door.
Right.
And because, for instance, the only prerequisite to choose Mage of High Sorcery is that you be in a Dragonlance campaign.
Interesting.
Because the Mage of High Sorcery background gives you the Initiate of High Sorcery feat, which then gives you magic.
Right.
So you can be a member of any class. And then your story could be, let's say you're a warlock or a sorcerer or a wizard that, well, you not only were an initiate, but then you passed the test and you carry on. Alternatively, your story could be maybe you're a barbarian who took Mage of High Sorcery and you have the Initiate of High Sorcery
It just
feat,
didn't work out for you.
but it just didn't work out.
You're kind of the jock.
You, after a few classes, you're like, this is not for me.
I did not. I thought I'd be way more into necromancy than I thought.
And you can do the same with Knight of Solamnia, but to take that story route, you need to select the backgrounds at character creation.
These are the most story-driven feats I've ever seen in D&D.
And I'm glad you think so. That was our goal. But it's also why we're introducing now this notion of a campaign prerequisite.
Right.
Because we find this to be a really fun design space, and we think they'll be really fun in play. And that's why we created this campaign prereq, to open the door for us to create world-specific feats.
This implies more campaigns are coming.
Well, we know they are. We've announced them.
That's true. That's fair.
And people are likely to see this sort of world and story-focused design in more of the feats in the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.